All right. Shall we get going? This is awesome. I think we're ready to go. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Payne. I'm Maria's managing partner. Welcome to this For People Within relaunch party. It's so good to see you all. We are here because Maria took her painful childhood wounds and turned them into vision to create more compassionate and effective leadership in the world in the next 20 to 50 years. Now, the For People Within was a labor of love from the very beginning. Maria knew that she could support people who were in pain because of their inability to harness the thinking, feeling, intuitive, and sensing parts of themselves, of their mind, to make better decisions, effectively to make better decisions. Now, the truth is that there aren't enough of us in this world who practice inner parenting within ourselves and in our external world. I mean, look at the world today. I can count on one hand the number of people, the number of effective, the number of leaders who possess these qualities. I began following Mary's work back in 2015. And I had no idea at the time that our visions would enmesh and I would wind up as the managing partner of the Sumilof Academy of Human Integration. However, I shouldn't have been surprised because work-wise, I had been doing everything up to that point that had a golden thread running to it. So I provided compassionate and effective leadership of my teams from 2008. But during that time, my managers only wanted the effectiveness part. However, I never knew of any other way to be. So I studied the For People Within course with it in 2018. Back when I took it, I was depressed, I was grieving, and I was unsure of my place in the world. Because of the For People Within, my life has undergone a profound transformation. And it's changed for the better, where anxiety, shame, and guilt, and imposter syndrome, plus lack of purpose used to run my life or ruin my life. My inner children have found their rightful place in my inner family, and they are now very calm. I discovered my true value and no longer rely on outside sources for esteem or confidence. I am a whole, worthy being. I am a whole being, human being worthy of love, care, respect, and support. I also create supportive and thriving relationships. Now, when Maria chose to rewrite the For People Within course, she did so based on lived experience and feedback. True to her love language, which is acts of service, Maria didn't take the easy way out just to revise the course a little bit. Oh, no, she did not. She undertook a total rewrite, and Maria created the roundtable model from scratch to illustrate the For People Within inner parenting relationships. The For People Within is essential to the emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical health of my life. It's not optional for me. This is my number one priority every single day. I am honored and privileged to have been given access to sections of the vastly expanded and more comprehensive For People Within course. I've had so many insights and aha moments. I cannot wait to get my hands on the entire For People Within. So let me tell you a bit about Maria. Some of you know this and some of you don't, but Maria is a pioneer in the personal development space. She's a writer, a speaker, and a master mentor at the Sumilof Academy of Human Integration and INFX Project, a virtual village for INFJs and INFPs of the Myers-Briggs Personality Indicator System. Maria's extensive, hang on a second. Okay. Mary's extensive studies span from global environment, agriculture, and food production, and human physiology to personality psychology and personal development. Her experience in these fields gives her a leading edge in supporting her clients in building a personally and ecologically sustainable, healthy, and wealthy life full of purpose. Driven by her 20 to 50 year mission of creating more compassionate and effective leadership around the world. Maria is best known for her mentoring training with her impressive and unparalleled coaching / mentor training program, the Integration Mentor Program. When she is not busy with her work, Maria spends time with her beloved partner, Peter, and her horses and dogs. Maria dedicates much of her personal life to animal welfare. She regularly raises funds and makes private donations to domestic and wildlife rescue organizations around the world. Maria is also an avid equestrian with 10 horses, 7 of which are rescued through the RSPCA, ISPCA, or private introductions. She's also rescued 3 dogs and a cat, who all live a wonderful life in their loving forever homes. There are so many people who have played a part in your work, Maria. Would you like to introduce and welcome your VIP guests?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say a big warm welcome to everyone here today. I'm so excited to be here with each and every one of you. It's so amazing to see how, you know, what we have 35 people on this call, and like I know every one of you pretty well, if not really well. I remember something of every one of you, and it's just such a privilege that you're taking this time to spend with us today. I'd like to thank, first of all, my family, who has been amazing in the process of just supporting me through this work, because this has been months or actually years coming, this upgrade and the amount of work that we're doing. We've gone from 5.5-hour course to about 15-hour course. I'm not completely finished with the editing part, so I don't know exactly what the end minutes or hours is going to be, but my God, it's been this has been a big undertaking, and without Peter, and most of you know Peter, my partner, and Anne, my sister, and my mother, and my auntie Tina, like I wouldn't have been able to do this, because those of you who know me, I've had quite some struggles in the last several years with the PTSD and with the various deaths and the fires and blah, blah, blah. It's just, the list goes on, the challenges that have come up. So I just want to say a big thanks to Peter, first of all, for just helping me find my voice, because this course is truly what I want to say. This is what I want to say. Take it, leave it, don't care, I've said it. I can now move on to really working with people. So it's such a relief. I don't know if any of you have created a big project like this, like if you've written, you know, if you've done masters or whatever, it's a big deal. So those people who are with you, they support you through it, and it's very, very important. And Lisbeth, you are the best friend that anyone can have. My beloved Alina and Sabella and Zoe, you have been so amazing it's been so amazing to have you as a part of my life. You make my day so much better, and I love how the future generation is challenging us as we are moving forward. All of us need to keep growing. I want to say a big thanks to my business partner, Lisa, Lisa, you made this happen. You facilitated me being able to do this, to get it finally done. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you, so thank you for that. My secret weapon, Faida, who might or might not be tuning into today. We love you, and we hope to see you soon. Joe, who helped make this party happen. I couldn't have done it without Joe. Thank you, Joe. And to my mentors, James, Kevin, Mike, and Sohail. It's just incredible to have that support with the business side of things as well. And my past and current team members, Jana, Val, Ursa, Rosella, Hannah, Amelia, thank you so much, Vervi, Jacqueline, Marie, Laura, Abby, Erica, Christina, and Sanna. This work is just, if you don't have meaningful work to share with other people, it just feels a bit hollow. So that's just been so amazing to work with you all. I want to say thanks to two of my most supportive assistants of all time. I hesitantly call them assistants because truly, I don't know, I just don't see people in these ways. I just see people in co-creative ways. But Wendy and Monica, you set the stage and the standard for support for me, and I'm always forever grateful. So thank you for that. And I want to say big thanks to Personality Hacker, Joel and Antonia, for publishing the original 4 People Within course. And of course, the INFX Unveiled course, which is for INFJs and INFPs. So it's been such a privilege to work with you. Karen, Beck, and Belinda, and all my other horsey peeps. Here, I see Kathy here. It's great to see you here, Kathy. I couldn't have done this without the whole horses and the, you know what it's about. It's a lifestyle, and it's what we love, and it's who we are, and without the balancing effect of just hanging out with horses and falling off horses, what would we do? Rani, Nick, Vicky, and Gia, I want to say a big thanks to you for helping me get my head right, especially through the PTSD piece. That was that was incredibly challenging. And my dear friends Venla and Brian and Mark and Raza and Sandra, it's good to see you here, Sandra. Thank you for being here. Cherie and Heather, thank you so much for all of your support. And a special thanks to Christina, Lisa, Val, and Sophia, who you did the reading piece for this course. It's great to see you here, Val. Your notes, especially when I was going through the final parts, you had little notes there, and I was like, oh, Val, oh my goodness, thank you so much. So these things don't just happen. You need some extra bits of help. And thank you to all of our best possible neighbors. So we have the best possible neighbors here where we live. I couldn't have done this without them, because their patience with me as I'm hauling the horses up and down the streets and moving them and strip feeding, and oh my goodness. I'm humbled by the support that we get on the ground here too. So thank you so much. Also, I want to say a big thanks to our integration mentors. In training and qualified, we are all making a big difference in our little parts of the world. Can we see a show of hands? Who do we have here? Yes. We're all doing our bit to change, our corner of the world to be more compassionate and effective, and bringing people together and being really being with each other in a more integrated way. It is a privilege to work with each and every one of you. And for everyone else, all of our students, all of our group members, all of my followers, I again hesitantly use the word follower because I don't want to be followed. I want everyone to come together and, do their bit in a way that's authentic to them. But thank you so much, everyone, for sharing this journey with me. I'm pretty sure I covered everyone. If I haven't, if I've forgotten, because I have what they call a baby brain, because my brain baby has been crowning for such a long time, and now it's finally out. So, so here we are. Thank you. If I've forgotten about you, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Maria. I'm so thrilled for my part to have played even a small part in this. So Mary is now going to do some reading from the upgraded 4 People Within course to give you a taste of what to expect. So, because I love movie references so much, here's Maria.
Oh my God, that sets it up real nice. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's do a little bit of personal development work. As you know, just going to switch off my video so you don't have to look at my face. You can see the screen properly. As you know, this has been a long time coming, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. this next couple of hours, I'm hoping we're going to have lots of learning and fun. And as I said, the original 4 People Within course was a lot shorter than this, but 15 hours, I think I've had a hard time trying to condense that down to this next hour and 40 minutes or so. So I'll do my best. If I need to skip over pieces, so be it. But please know I'm very humbled to be here with you, all of you today. So shall we do some personal development? I know Lisa's always up for it. So I've put together a, as I said, like a smallish kind of part of we have about 30 modules in this new course instead of the old 4, so that'll give you an idea. So I put a little bit of a small section out of most of them. So let's go into first module. Is all about the stages of change. So nothing's more frustrating than not knowing what to do or making the same mistakes over and over again. It's like the track of your life is stuck like playing a loop and you're wondering what the F train is going on, or you might know what's going on and you already kind of know how things are going to play out, but you might not know exactly what to do or why you're in a situation where you are right now. And I wonder, did you ever find yourself in a situation where you recognized that something needed to change, but you just weren't sure what it would be or what it should be? Or maybe you knew what needed to change, but for some reason you just couldn't do it. I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I certainly struggled with it in the past. You know, it's easy to kind of think that if only things were different, then my life would be different, or if that other person only saw things that I can see, then everything would be okay. But of course, unfortunately, this kind of thinking, while it's understandable, it inadvertently ends up taking our power away. Because whenever we rely on others to make us happy, we're no longer in charge of our own life. And honestly, I know this can be a little bit hard to hear, but of course, most often the common denominator in recurring challenges in our lives is us, ourselves. So if we want to change the recurring challenges in our lives, we must change ourselves. But let's be realistic. In order to change, we need to know what our starting point is. And so if we don't, we'll have unreasonable expectations of ourselves. And when we understand the stages of change that we're currently at, then we can begin to control our process of change and thus our process of healing and achievement in life. Now, change can be hard, and especially if you're not ready to change. But if you know what stage of change you're at, then it makes it a little bit easier. So the 6 stages of change are the pre-contemplation stage, where you are not at all aware of something that needs to be changed. So let's just say that somebody says something to you, you're behaving this way, or this is something you do regularly, and you don't recognize that because it's in your unconscious mind. You just kind of go like, yeah, you know what, you're wrong, or I'm not interested in this feedback, or this feedback is not relevant to me. So in the pre-contemplation stage, we're not aware of anything that should change in our lives. And the pre-contemplation stage is a space where we don't really make any change, because we don't recognize that there is a reason for it. Then we have the contemplation stage. We are aware of a problem that we have. So maybe somebody said something, maybe 3 different people said something to you where they went, oh, you should look at this, or maybe get this, think about this, or maybe make some changes here. And you kind of got the message. You got enough feedback from the world saying, you know what, it's not exactly right. Like what you're doing isn't working for you. And you go into contemplation stage. So you're aware of the problem and you're looking for some information for a solution, but you're not quite ready to change yet. So you're looking at who might be able to help you and what might be able to help you. Then we have the determination stage. So this stage, you're ready to commit to taking action. And with the determination stage, you have found an approach that you think is good, and you're gearing towards, you're putting your ducks on the road to take action. And the fourth stage is action stage. So you start taking action. So you all the fence sitting, everything is finished. You're now taking action. You're ready to jump into it. You're, you know, a perfect example of this is when you buy that personal development course or that book, you're ready to take action and you start reading it or you start doing the exercise in it. You're in the actionary stage. The fifth stage of change is maintenance. So you're working on the issue, but some relapses may occur. So, you know, you're working on your issue, you're becoming a lot more aware of it, you're working through it, you're getting some headway, you're starting to really make a difference or see a difference in changes in your life, but you might have some relapses from time to time. So let's just say that, you know, you love donuts, but you can't eat all the donuts in the world. But then there's a really stressful time, and then and then you just go, you know what, I'm going to have a donut, and then you have your donut, so you have like a relapse, and then if you beat yourself up for it afterwards, it's not going to help your change. It's not going to help your transformation. So it's really important that we understand that in maintenance stage, some relapses may occur, and if we learn from those relapses, so instead of beating ourselves up and shaming ourselves, we actually say, okay, what was it that triggered me into having that donut, even though I know it's not right for me, it's not good for me. Now you can start changing things. Maybe you need to set a boundary with somebody so you don't get so stressed out. Maybe you need to, you know, remove yourself from those stressful situations going forward. So use that relapse to really understand yourself better and get back on track with your change. So don't be afraid of relapses. They will occur most often. It's what you learn from them that's more important than anything else. And finally, we have the sixth stage, which is termination, where the issue no longer affects your everyday life. So you are really just kind of getting on with your everyday life, but your past trauma or your past pain no longer affects the decisions that you make throughout the day. So you're no longer that person who had that pain point. So that's the kind of a little snippet of the stages of change. I'd like to ask you, what insights did you take away from this excerpt? What were the big things that you kind of thought about as we were talking? Kathy says, love the attitude to relapses. Yeah. Look, we need to be kind to ourselves. We can't just keep, like, shame never helps anybody over addiction. I don't think. Saida says it's normal. It's really comforting to know that relapse is normal. Yes, it is. Yeah, and it's nothing to be afraid of, because only if you're used to being shamed for your relapse is it something to be afraid of. But if you just turn the tables on that a little bit and say, you know what, no, I'm gonna learn from this relapse. I'm gonna use this inverted commas failures to fail forward. Then all of a sudden, no problem. You can learn from your relapse. Rika says that starting to read a book is also a beginning of taking action. Yeah. And you don't have to. There's this whole thing where people go, oh, we need to do everything. We need to do every exercise, and we need to do everything, and it has to be perfect, and we have to do 100%. Personal development isn't it's not really something that you can do perfectly, because you're always evolving. So even reading, like if you're super stressed or under pressure or grieving, even reading 2 sentences of a book is taking action. So let's be kind to ourselves. Zahida, and it doesn't help to beat ourselves up over it. No, it really doesn't. Elena says, learning from relapses. I have gotten so many insights around my metrics for stress and so on. Donuts was too real. Yeah. Kathy says it's important to separate and the unaware from the aware stage. Yeah, for sure. Jacqueline, hey Jacqueline. For most people, it's hard to see which stage we're at when we want to change. Yeah, for sure. Megan, thinking about times I got input from people I didn't accept, but now understand that they were right. They may have been right. So if there's a pattern, if many people say the same thing to you, then there's probably some truth to it. Sometimes people just give their unsolicited opinion about what you're doing, and that's that as well. For it, that there's hope to evolve, even not there yet. Yes, good to see you, Farita. Relapses are part of the process. Yeah. Beth says, what are the common barriers for INFXers to go from determination to action? Sometimes it's just deciding that, sometimes it's just saying, you know what, I'm going to see if this works, but I'm going to find a really safe way of doing it. So let's just say that you were considering getting a mentor or a coach. If they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, no problem. So you could go like, yeah, let's do this. And I know that for the first 30 days, if it's not right for me, I can take it. I can get my money back. So it really depends what your worry is about that. Okay. Tyson, hey Tyson, seconded or thirded or millionth, as the case may be, on the reframing of relapses. Relapses, the feeling that relapse means that all previous progress was invalid or wouldn't ever stick. Yes, progress is always valid, even if you have relapses, as long as you keep moving forward. Okay, let's go to module 2, boundaries. So what I'd like to talk about today is setting boundaries versus having boundaries. So there's a big difference between having boundaries and setting boundaries. Setting boundaries are most commonly done through disconnected words and distance, be it physical or emotional. And having boundaries usually manifests in presence and intimacy, be it platonic sense of understanding and being on the kind of the same page, or romantic intimacy of passion and the sense of belonging. Now, having boundaries can create magnificent co-creative opportunities and a sense of safety, while setting boundaries out of frustration and disconnect induces the ill feelings of rejection and abandonment most often. Now, all of us at some point in our lives have been at the receiving end of boundary setting through maybe words or actions such as emotional distance or being left out of a group. And this is why we think most often that boundaries are something painful and negative. But the great news actually is that boundaries are not just about pain. Differentiating between setting boundaries and having boundaries can make a big difference in how you view boundaries. By you beginning to have boundaries with yourself and others, in other words, when you begin to practice your authentic self and communicate those parameters to others before you get upset, frustrated, and angry, underlined, before you get upset, frustrated, and angry. If you learn to communicate and set those boundaries, those parameters with others, boundaries become a natural extension of who you are, and having boundaries as well as accepting them from others becomes easy and, believe it or not, even comforting, because you know where you stand. Studies show that people who have observed their parents have consistent and loving boundaries feel safer in the world and tend to have a stronger foundation of who they are and how they show up in the world. In contrast, people who were at the receiving end of emotionally charged boundary setting or lack of boundary setting feel less tethered to themselves and less safe in the world. To have healthy boundaries with others, we must get to know ourselves and be able to communicate the knowledge with others. Our sense of self comes from our feelings about ourselves, our attitudes and beliefs about ourselves and our lives, our personal choices and our intentions for lives, as well as our values, our real or perceived limitations, our skills and our talents, and our desires for ourselves and others, just to mention a few. So there's a lot that really, there's a lot to discover in all of us. An individual that is skilled in having boundaries recognizes and practices communicating and reminding others of their boundaries. They do not assume that others automatically intuit the parameters of their boundaries, and they realize that different individuals may perceive similar boundary lines with very different parameters or definitions. The clearer that we each get of each of these parts of ourselves and how we relate to the world, and the higher level of integration we have with these aspects of ourselves, the easier it becomes to figure out our values and communicate them to others around us. Now, without this clarity and the ability to communicate these values with others, having healthy boundaries becomes difficult, if not impossible. and we have to resort to setting boundaries instead of having them. So setting boundaries can tax our levels of energy, and it creates volatility in relationships, whereas having boundaries allows us to live in a calmer life, one that feels more together and congruent. Now, at this stage, somebody would say, well, surely there are times that you should be setting boundaries, and yes, there absolutely are. Much like everything in life, setting boundaries versus having boundaries is a dichotomous issue. It's never black and white, as in you should never set boundaries. In fact, if you never learn to set boundaries, like some of us haven't ever learned to set boundaries. I didn't have the terrible twos, for example, when I was a child. I didn't have that self-establishment space. If we haven't learned to set those boundaries, it's nearly impossible to learn to set them later on in life. It's very difficult at the very least. And this course really, I wrote this course for myself in so many ways. There's that important rite of passage called crisis of opposition, which some call the terrible twos or the terrible threes, where a child learns to think and speak of themselves as an entity separate to those around them. This crisis begins when the child starts saying no. This is a perfect example of setting boundaries, and it is an important skill to develop at that age. And of course, many parents don't appreciate the need for this developmental stage. And if it's not embraced, the child may fail at realizing that they have the right to set boundaries. So having boundaries becomes nearly impossible until the important developmental stage of setting boundaries has been actualized. Some who have experienced consistent boundary violations in their childhood will have to start with their having boundaries process with setting boundaries. And of course, there are other times when we should be setting boundaries. So let's just say that we have a 3-year-old child who's running into traffic after their ball. So they throw the ball rolls into traffic, and they're running after it. Of course, you would rather grab the child than have them be hit by a car. So of course, there are times it's not black and white. And finally, sometimes we do cross paths with people who simply cannot help themselves but to enter into dynamics of power games. An exaggerated example of this kind of person I'm talking about is a narcissist or a sociopath. And naturally clear boundaries should be set with anyone who consistently violates the boundaries that you have, whether they are narcissistic, sociopathic, or just an ordinary person who has become reliant on their coping mechanisms and force them on others. So to say that you should never set boundaries is not true either. And so for me, the main takeaway here should be focused on what type of boundary is appropriate and when. So let's get your insights on this boundary section. What did you take away from that part? Kathy says, I had never really thought about the setting boundaries piece. Yeah. Sahida, I didn't even realize there was a difference between having and setting. Very interesting. Yeah. Abby, very moving to hear about the importance of the terrible twos. Oh my God, it's so underestimated. It's incredible. And it's funny. It's not really talked about in a positive way until somebody who hasn't experienced it talks about it. And now you realize the importance of it. I'm a little bit jealous of all those people who had terrible twos and they were able to do their self-establishment back then. And Kathy says, as you say, setting boundaries often happens when we're upset and angry. Yeah. If we can do it, if we could just have boundaries and we're consistent with them rather than wait until we're angry to set them. I know it gives us power to feel angry. So maybe if we feel powerless in those situations, that we wait until we are angry and we have that power. I mean, I'm, a prime example of that. I had to learn it that way, get angry and then set the boundary. Never got a chance to establish boundaries as a child. Yeah, Beth, I hear you. It's been so healing to do this as an adult. Yeah, and you're still learning. I hear you. We're on the same boat there. Okay, yeah, when we're upset, it causes damage. Well, yeah, it can cause damage, and oftentimes people who have inverted commas damaged us. I'm saying inverted commas because sometimes abuse is real and sometimes it's perceived, and I've certainly had both. So I don't want to assume any abuse, but also I don't want to assume no abuse. But yeah, it's that whole piece that, you know, damaged people damage other people. So we want to kind of stop the puck here. The boundaries are part of definition of who we are. Yeah. Kathy has a question. As a child, I absorbed that I was not allowed to have my own boundaries, but was expected to work with everyone else's. So how does that impact things? Yeah, so it basically conditions you, and we're not going to talk huge amount about the conditioning here, but we'll talk about it in the full course. Because I had to select which parts to keep in and which to get out, and I'm sorry that I can't give you all the information. But yeah, so it's more to do with conditioning in that point, where, you know, you've conditioned to believe something about yourself that is not true. You've recognized now that it's not true. You have recognized that you haven't been allowed to have your own boundaries, but were forced to follow others. So you've now realized that you have your own boundaries and that you can have your own boundaries. So it certainly affects your conditioning in a way that you know, you show up as a part of everyone else and maybe a little bit hidden in the background. So you don't necessarily put yourself forward. So that's that. Bonnie says boundaries. Hey, Bonnie. Boundaries is such a hard concept for me to learn, but I know how important having them can be. I hope to learn about how to set boundaries. Yeah, I hear you. And Derek says boundaries are a tool to navigate life in a manner where you can meet your own and others' needs promptly and consistently to have a powerful and productive life and relationships. Yeah, for sure. Okay, some amazing key takeaways there. The positive side of terrible twos and terrible threes was helpful. Yeah, and our inner children as well, especially our 3-year-old inner child, has to have the terrible twos or terrible threes. And if we don't have that, we kind of stop tapping into that power that that little baby part of us has. Okay, let's move on to the 4 people within work. I mean, it's the name of the course, creating intentional outcomes. So the 4 people within is a personality psychology decoding tool. It is it's continuation from the works of Carl Jung, Isabel Briggs-Myers, and Catherine Cook Briggs, and it is an honor, an absolute honor and a privilege to be standing on the shoulders of these giants of psychiatry and psychoanalysis. The 4 people within continues the work of the Myers-Briggs Personality Indicator, or MBTI, taking the student deeper into understanding themselves, their inner conflicts, and their purposeful life. So when we speak about our 4 people within, or the cognitive functions of the Myers-Briggs system, we refer to them in terms that may initially seem a little bit strange to you, but that will make more and more sense as you continue your integration work. What MBTI calls dominant function, we call our adult self. What MBTI calls auxiliary function, we call our inner parent. The MBTI tertiary function is called the 10-year-old inner child, and the MBTI inferior function is called the 3-year-old inner child. Instead of the clinical MBTI terminology, we chose to use these familial terms to make the information more understandable, acceptable, and relatable. And so MBTI was created as a tool and not a rigid definition, and the type descriptions are there to offer the student a concrete starting point and not to excuse disintegrated behavior. So a lot of the MBTI, if you're out there in the MBTI community, there's a lot of talk about just the negative sides of everyone, and that really doesn't work for me. And I wanted to bring in this this whole concept of a family, so that we can, in fact, love all of ourselves, all of who we are. So with this structure and the subsequent starting point in mind, I hope you can fully embrace our framework from here on in with the inner family, and take the opportunity to dive deep into who you are and the value that you offer to the world. I look forward to working with you through this material. So the 4 people within are the different parts of our personality. When we align the four people within, who reside within us, the thinker, the feeler, the sensor, and the intuitive, we can become the absolute best version of ourselves. Our best self has the power to achieve all we have capacity to achieve. This inner alignment is the ultimate lottery win. Only it's not up to chance, it's up to you. Creating intentional outcomes. When we understand that there are different parts of us that operate in different ways, then we can find out more in depth who we are and what our strengths and challenges are in life. Until we realize our strengths and challenges, we cannot intentionally craft or gauge our evolutionary process. All of your intentional personal development rests on understanding yourself. You know the age-old adage, what gets measured gets managed. While most people think it only applies to financial goals, it actually relates to creating an intentional outcome you want. You know, a doctor or a veterinarian making life-altering decisions on behalf of the patient, a parent choosing how to best nourish their child, or an artist who wants to bring their vision into the world, or an executive wanting to run their own company more effectively. Knowing the four parts, the thinker, the feeler, the sensor, and the intuitive, and being able to quantify their contribution to our decision making can reveal why some desired outcomes become a reality and why some don't. I mean, we make approximately 35,000 decisions every day. Every day. And each one of them, each one of them is either intentional or unintentional. Some decisions are made consciously and deliberately, and others are just a reaction to our fears or our conditioning. So being deliberate around the most important daily decisions guides us toward the desired end result, whereas overlooking our decision-making power or not being aware of it can leave us feeling powerless about the direction of our lives and passive in our decision-making. Have you ever felt like you wanted to change something but felt powerless over the follow-through? This could be an issue with your health or your relationships or your finances. Your current challenges around these topics is not a result of you being a bad person or a failure or that you're incapable of change. It's very likely that your current challenges just reflect on the fact that there's a part of you that is holding you back from realizing the change that you want to see. So when you know who the four people within you are, you will understand how they influence your decision making. Understanding your decision making allows you to make conscious choices about the big and small things in life, and learning to choose consciously leads to more intentional outcomes. Let's talk a little bit about the round table model of personal development. So the four people within us, the sensor, the intuitive, the thinker, and the feeler, composes what we call our inner family. Each of these people have a different level of experience and sophistication in life. To give you an understanding of these different parts of you and their level of maturity, fluidity, and preference, we have named the four parts of your inner family as the adult self, who's the most mature and advanced part of you, the inner parent, who's the second most experienced and capable part of you, the 10-year-old inner child, who is the third most fluent and developed part of you, and the 3-year-old inner child, who is the least sophisticated and experienced part of you. If this model sounds too weird, as I said, stick with me. It'll soon make sense. The purpose of this model is to teach you to shift perspective between the four different parts of you, the sensor, the intuitive, the thinker, and the feeler, so that when life brings you a problem to solve, you can inspect the issue from the perspective of your two ways of collecting information before making a more rounded decision with both of your decision makers. So you have two information collectors, two decision makers. Now, if you feel like drawing this diagram, I suggest that you draw a round table, you put a line across it, and you put 4 seats around the table. And I want to say a big thank you to Sanna for creating all these amazing graphics for us today. Okay, so the adult self on the top left corner is the most fluent part of you. It is the part of you that sets the direction of life in your life and who you are as a person. It is the part of you you use most easily, and the one that is most developed usually. Again, this is not black and white, so I'm talking in general terms. This part of you is consistently the one that most people think about when they think about you. In other words, this is the part of you that guides most of your actions in the outside world. If your adult self is a thinker, then others generally think you are intelligent. If it's a feeler, others see you as emotional or emotionally available. If it is a sensor, others recognize your preference for sensory experiences. Or if it's an intuitive, others see you as an innovative, inquisitive mind. In other words, your adult self is either a decision-making part of you, a feeler or a thinker, or an information collecting part of you, a sensor or intuitive. Your adult self also has an extroverted or an introverted orientation, and it's generally this orientation of the adult self that determines whether we appear introverted or extroverted in the world to the people around us. So now, to balance the adult self, we have another well-developed part of us, which we call the inner parent, top right corner there on the drawing. The inner parent's job has two purposes. It is there to balance out the adult self, and it acts as a bridge between the adult self and the inner children. The inner parent is the opposite of the adult self in functioning and in orientation. What this means is that if the adult self is a decision-making part of you, thinker or feeler, then the inner parent is automatically an information collecting part of you, sensor or intuition, and vice versa. Also, the orientation of the inner parent is different to the adult self. So if your adult self is introverted, then your inner parent is automatically extroverted, and vice versa. Let's move on to the bottom of the table. So if you want to draw that line between the top and the bottom, so the top parts of us are how others see us, how we show up the most in the world, what guides our moods and actions in life, unless, of course, we're very, very stressed, and what the things that we have most control over in our lives. We move on to the childlike parts of us at the bottom, how we see ourselves that are most vulnerable, the parts of us that we protect and hide from the world. You know, the parts of us that guide most of our actions in life when we're super stressed, and the parts of us that we have least control over. So at the bottom of the table, we have the inner children. These inner children take two forms based on these parts' respective cognitive ability. So we have the 10-year-old inner child and the 3-year-old inner child. The 10-year-old inner child is a part of you that has experienced life just enough to feel that they think they know everything about life and how it works. Just like many 10-year-old children, the 10-year-old inner child operates in a very black and white way in their approach to life. You know, they've learned something and then they think that's the only way. The main role of the 10-year-old inner child should be to support the grown-up parts of you and to keep in mind that the cause and effect of everyday life. So really look at, if this, then that, if this, then what. Unfortunately, most of the time, the 10-year-old inner child enters into a power struggle with the inner parent because they have the same function, so they do the same job. They either collect information or make decisions, both the inner parent and the 10-year-old inner child. So they go into power struggle. And because they have different orientation, so if the inner parent is an outward-facing part of you, an extroverted part of you, then the 10-year-old inner child is an introverted part of you, and vice versa. And because of that difference in orientation, but the similarity in the job, they can really cause havoc. It is this struggle for power that causes our inner warring within us. So the orientation of the 10-year-old inner child is the same as the adult self. So the diagonal person. So the adult self and the 10-year-old inner child have the same orientation, which means that because they have different functions, so if the adult self is an information collector and the 10-year-old inner child is then automatically a decision maker, but they're both inward or outward turned, they can get into cahoots with each other and override the inner parent. So this relationship between the adult self and the 10-year-old inner child, this cahoots, they can create an issue for us because the same orientation, they tend to have bias towards each other. And we can enter with these two into what's called a loop. So if you're an introvert, you can enter into an introverted loop, or if you're an extrovert, you can enter into an extroverted loop. And what this looks like to the outside world is that you're very self-referencing. You're just focusing on yourself all the time if you're an introvert, and if you're an extrovert, it just shows that you're scattered and shallow and you're not focusing on anything. And so these kinds of challenges are why the 10-year-old inner child should be in a supportive role in your inner family, not the headliner. It's an unsustainable model to only be, you know, in an introverted loop, in a self-referencing space, or an extroverted loop where we never enter into introspection. And this looping is one of the biggest problems why people never actualize their lives that they want to live. Finally, to complete the picture of the 4 people within, let's take an overview of the 3-year-old inner child. So the 3-year-old inner child is the least fluent and most vulnerable part of you. Just like 3-year-old children, your 3-year-old inner child is very easily influenced by your thoughts and your surroundings. The role of the 3-year-old inner child is to balance out your adult self and to provide depth to your life's purpose. The adult self and the 3-year-old inner child share the same function, but have different orientation. So while the relationship is similarly competitive between the inner parent and the 10-year-old inner child and the adult self and the 3-year-old inner child, the power struggle between the adult self and the 3-year-old inner child is not as fair. Your most mature and advanced adult self part is fighting the least sophisticated, most vulnerable part of you. The biggest challenge in the adult self 3-year-old inner child dynamic is that the inner child often gets crushed and completely ignored by the intention of the adult self. It is the adult self, if the adult self is a sensor, then the 3-year-old inner child is an intuitive. And in these cases, it's easy for the person to ignore their intuition and just charge ahead in life. The same is true with decision making. If the adult self is a feeler and the 3-year-old inner child is a thinker, it's likely that overriding thinking with emotions will result in a dramatic, exhausting life. This is why the 3-year-old inner child should be considered and protected by the adult self. We want to create a balance, you know, beautiful balance in our inner family and a fuller, more even perspective in life. So just as the adult self and the 10-year-old inner child are in the same orientation but in different function, the same is true for the inner parent and the 3-year-old inner child. So if the inner parent is extroverted in their orientation, so is the 3-year-old inner child. Or if the inner parent is introverted in its orientation, so is the 3-year-old inner child. Of course, with different functioning, if the inner parent is a decision-making part of you, a thinker or a feeler, then the 3-year-old inner child is automatically an information-collecting part of you, a sensor or an intuition or vice versa. So I'm just going to give you a real-life example of an actual table. So here's an INFJ inner family roundtable. Again, many thanks to Sanna for the design. So this is an INFJ. This is my inner family roundtable. Adult self, we have the witness, who is an inward-facing intuition. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. Inner parent, we have a unifier, outward-facing feeler. Inner 10-year-old, we have a scientist, inward-facing thinker. And in a 3-year-old, we have the investigator, which is an outward-facing sensor. Now, the pink ones, the pink parts, people, pink peeps, are information collectors, and the blue ones are decision makers. So the adult self and the inner parent have opposite function and opposite orientation. That's why they complement each other really, really well. But if you look at the bottom of the table, the 3-year-old inner child and the 10-year-old inner child also have opposite function and opposite orientation. That's why if we get super triggered, we can go into the bottom of that table and start making really bad decisions based on really bad information that we're gathering. because these kids, they are valuable parts of us as supportive parts, but they don't have, because they're not so sophisticated or developed, they don't have the capacity for foresight. So they make short-term decisions, and when we're stressed, we often make really bad decisions. So as you can also see, the inner parent, unifier, and the 10-year-old inner child scientist, they have the same function. So they're both decision makers, but they have opposite orientation. So one is outward facing, the other one is inward facing. And the same is true for the adult self and 3-year-old inner child. They have the same function, opposite orientation. Okay. So that's quite a lot of information. I know this can be a little bit technical. So yes, the pink is information gathering, blue is decision making. Thanks, Beth. And yeah, the inner children don't have a lot of foresight because they're not very developed, sophisticated parts of us. So we want to make our adult grown-up decisions with our grown-up parts of us, the adult self and the inner parent. So if you're an INFJ, then you want to collect most of your information with your intuition, but ask for the 3-year-old inner child's help, the investigator, the outward sensor, to kind of make sure that your intuition is attached to reality. And then you want to make most of your decisions by the feeler part of you, if you're an INFJ, the unifier, whilst asking the 10-year-old inner child scientist to make sure that you have all the facts on which you're basing your decisions. So we won't have time to go through each one of these models, each one of these tables, but you will have access to those in our 4 People Within ebook. And you can actually go and grab it if you already haven't. Go and grab it from mariasunilov.com. On the front page there, you will have access to the ebook, and all this information is there. So I'm going to leave it at that for the 4 People Within section of this course. There's a lot more in the actual course, of course. So what is your big takeaway from that section of today? What's your big takeaway? Thanks for staying, Leandri. I know Leandri is in South Africa, so they have power issues. So her battery is gone flat. So thank you for attending for as long as you did. Thanks, Leandri. So inner children don't have much foresight. Yeah, that's right. And it's not their fault. It's just, you know, we just haven't had enough mileage, and we can create more foresight for the inner children. Kathy says, actually, that has really clarified things for me. And for me is the balancing effect on how to use the strengths of each element. Yeah. I'm trying to see how my 10-year-old shows up. I made note, you said 10-year-old, you said this 10-year-old introverted loop can be the reason why we don't self-actualize. So 10-year-old can hold us up. Yeah. So the 10-year-old, because they're super black and white, they haven't had enough life experience to kind of see all the shades of gray. That can make you make really black and white decisions in life, whereas life isn't black and white. And that oftentimes when we can be a little bit rigid that way with the 10-year-old inner child, then yeah, we can, because of our rigidity in our decision making, we don't actually see all the opportunities that we have in life to actualize our life. So I hope that makes sense. Deb says, make sure you're making adult decisions with the adult parts of the inner family. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they have the most foresight, so that's perfect. Sarah says that the 3-year-old is the most vulnerable. It made me realize so much. Yeah, that 3-year-old, we have to protect them. We have to protect them, and it can be really hard to protect them if they're playing up. If, as they say in Ireland, if they're acting the maggot. So they're really like playing up and being really resistant and contrary. But we have to love them because they are the most vulnerable parts of us, and we have to protect them. Farita says, have to pay more attention to who's making decisions. Yes. How important it is that the adult function protects the 3-year-old inner child. Absolutely. The inner child, the inner adult. So you're talking about the adult self there, Abby. is squashing the 3-year-old, the inner 3-year-old. Yeah, absolutely. Bonnie says, this is fascinating, being 58 years old and just finding out a lot about myself recently is both intriguing and also stressful. Yeah, look, I get it. And try to focus on where you are going rather than where you have been, because it can, the kind of the pain and the grief process of can be really overwhelming if we focus on what we haven't had. But focusing on what we haven't had also can offer you a little bit of a sense of purpose and direction in purpose. So Jacqueline is saying, we want to appreciate the 4 people within us and really listen to each. Exactly. Derek would benefit from making extra effort connecting with my 3-year-old inner child. Yeah. And Tyson, generational patterns that we are swept up into our family of origin can replicate themselves in our inner family, and do. Oh my God, they do. They leave a mark, and you know. And you're saying making it difficult to distinguish between outer family dynamics and inner family dynamics of the self. Yeah, absolutely. It can be really easy to get tangled in that. Okay, let's move on to the next section. So levels of consciousness. And I'm noticing the time, so I want to make sure that I'm covering the main parts. We're not going to get to anywhere near enough as much information as I hoped that we would get on this, but I just feel like it's more important to be with you guys where you are and talk about these things and give you value even on this call. Okay, levels of consciousness. So consciousness is a basis of all change. Only when we become aware of who we are and what is happening in our surroundings can we begin to make plans to change. With a more conscious approach to life, we are able to clarify our life's vision and direction and learn new strategies and skills to get there. When we are not intentional about who we are and how we belong to the world, attempting to heal old pains and achieve our life's purpose is nearly impossible. Without the reflective and integrated intention and action towards our goals, our everyday life can feel very treacherous. It's like we know what we want from life, but we don't know how to get there. And when we don't examine our levels of consciousness, everything feels like it's too hard. The whole life feels like it's too hard. With self-examination comes direction and power. Understanding ourselves and simultaneously getting comfortable with not understanding everything about ourselves right now gives us the power to evolve. This gap of discovery allows maximum level of self-analysis and helps us find out what we need to in order to get to the next stage of our lives and move forward toward our life's desires. So accepting that we don't know everything about ourselves allows us to become students of life. And this approach opens up our minds to new possibilities we never even thought of before. And this is where life's magic happens. And this is what we were talking about before with the 10-year-old inner child being so definite about how things are. We lose out on all of that because we're not students of life, because we're not open to life. This journey of evolution toward our life's desires is a one-step-at-a-time process of starting where we are and forging a path to where we want to go. So knowing what we want in life is not enough to get us there. Acknowledging our starting point fully, all the good, the bad, and the ugly, sets us up for creating real change, not simply spiritual bypasses. We cannot change something we're not aware of, and we don't become aware. And if we don't become aware of our starting point, it is probable that we stay stuck in our old patterns of behavior and existence. So to understand who we are, what is driving us, and what we want to achieve in life, we must understand the 3 levels of consciousness and what part they play in our personal discovery journey and transformational journey. So the 3 levels of consciousness are the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. And I'm just going to do a really quick overview of each of those, and we're delving into all of that more in the 4 People Within course, the new 4 People Within course. The conscious mind holds all the information about the thoughts, the memories, the feelings, and the wishes that we are aware of at any given moment. Our thoughts about ourselves and others in the world, when reflective, can be directed to become more supportive of our desired outcome. So we can, our conscious mind, we can really control it. We can really direct it. We can make a difference with it. It's all that stuff, all those thoughts and memories and feelings and wishes that we hold in, that we're aware of, that we hold in our conscious mind. Now, much like the conscious mind, the subconscious mind holds information about the thoughts and memories and feelings and wishes, but what makes it profoundly different is the level of awareness. So the subconscious mind operates automatically under the direction of the conscious mind. On its own, the subconscious mind has no awareness of itself or its thoughts. Alongside assuming the role of storage, the subconscious mind recognizes patterns for deliberate creation and as per directed by the conscious mind. So the conscious mind can really, really control the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is often described as the servant to the conscious mind, but perhaps a more compassionate way of illustrating the role and importance of the subconscious mind is to present the conscious mind as the captain of the ship and the subconscious mind as the crew. In this analogy, the captain knows that without their crew, they will not reach their final destination. Thus, the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind becomes mutually respectful as opposed to being one of superiority and inferiority. So the captain understands how hard the crew is working. They appreciate all the crew's strengths. The subconscious mind stashes away information we're currently unable to handle. The subconscious mind also stows away information we don't need to think about right now. At a moment's notice, our subconscious mind can pull out information pertinent to what's currently happening. And when the situation is over, the crew takes the thoughts, the memories, the feelings, the wishes, and just stashes them neatly away until they're needed again. Now, the unconscious mind is by far the biggest part of our consciousness as humans. It stores the information about our thoughts and memories and feelings and wishes that we're not able to handle, or the ones that we had no previous point of reference to. Remember when I was talking about the pre-contemplation stage of personal development? That's when the information that we don't want to take action on is in the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is where we have no direct access to the information. So we don't even know that the knowledge is there or what knowledge the unconscious mind holds. There is a massive amount of data, thoughts, and beliefs buried in our unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind is effectively what's called a blind spot for us. And what's interesting about the unconscious mind is that while we are completely unaware of the thoughts and beliefs that we have there, other people generally know some of these things about us. It is as if others can detect from our demeanor things that we are too close to understanding. And that is a perfect example of the pre-contemplation stage. Others can see it, we can't. Okay, let's go into your insights on this section. What's your big takeaway from this? Thanks for coming in, Debs. Thanks for joining us, Abby. Great to have you. So what are your big takeaways from the levels of consciousness? Zaida says, I'm amazed that the subconscious mind is servant to the conscious mind. Yeah. Beth says, massive amount buried in the unconscious. Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the unconscious mind, like if we knew everything we were ever going to know, life has become very boring. So it's a good thing that we can hold on to our sense of wonder by always continuing to find new things about ourselves that are residing in the unconscious mind. Frida says, need to study subconscious mind more. Yes. So in the full 4 People Within program, you may have, I can't remember if you have it, Frida. We go into some serious exercises, what we call the captain's orders, to really gauge and guide the subconscious mind more effectively. Kathy says, love this as in my confidence work. I work on a lot of different levels. Yeah, Kathy does amazing work. Her business is Complete Confidence. It's fantastic. And Joe says, I always assumed conscious mind was the servant to the subconscious, not the other way around. Yeah. We can actually, well, you can have it that way. So if you don't direct your subconscious mind, it will direct you, but you can choose. Sarah says the same. Tyson, the unconscious mind is where all the fun is. Yeah, of course, I want to be a therapist, so maybe biased. Yeah, thanks, Tyson. I agree. Beth, and it's our blind spot. What practices bring that to the surface? Meditation, movement, and writing. Yeah, sorry, let me just go into the unconscious mind. So again, we go into that in more detail in the course. The unconscious mind, you want to just stay open to what might be there. So listen to the feedback that world is giving you, as opposed to, not doing that. Because the best way to access the unconscious mind, I mean, a lot of people access it through, meditation or, anyway, or going into spiritual retreats and getting shamanic healing and those kinds of things. And there's a lot to that, but we can actually induce that. We don't have to force our knowledge into our unconscious mind, because if we force our knowledge into unconscious mind, and that's one of the reasons why psychedelics don't work as consistently and as sustainably as the 4 People Within work, the inner parenting work does, is because when we try to access our unconscious mind too much and too quickly, we get too much information, and the contrast between our living world, and our trip is too big. So if we actually just say that I'm open to knowing what's in my unconscious mind, but I'm not going to force it. I trust that it will move into the subconscious mind when it's time for it, when it will, and you stay open to the reflections that the outside world is giving you, then your access to your unconscious mind will be sustainable, and your growth will be sustainable as a person. So you don't have these big, massive gaps. I hope that makes sense. Dominique says, it's interesting that others can often see our unconscious more than we can. Absolutely, yeah. Linda says, as a hypnotherapist, NLP coach, it's wonderful to bring about transformation, but through accessing the unconscious mind. Yeah. Derek, big takeaway, the practice of being intentional about engaging the captain's orders is the easiest way to gain traction on the road of integration, my inner family, into a supportive relationship. Yeah, instead of the adversarial and dysfunctional connection. Yeah, absolutely. And Bonnie says, I can't wait to do this work. It's absolutely fascinating. Thanks, guys. So I'm going to do a couple more modules. I'm going to cover a couple more modules because we will not have time to go through everything. I want to make sure that we're having time for a Q&A as well. So the next piece I'm going to work with you guys on is the drama triangle by Stephen Karpman. So the drama triangle is a social model of human integration in situations of conflict. In this model, created by psychiatrist and teacher of transactional analysis Stephen Karpman, the shape of a triangle is used to map the dynamic of destructive interaction that can occur between people in a conflict. The basis of the drama triangle is what any dramatic situation or any situation of conflict, that there's 3 different people involved. These people are called the rescuer, the persecutor, and the victim. And when it comes to conflict, each of us have a primary or most familiar role on the triangle. This is a place from which we generally enter or get hooked onto the tension of the power struggle. Most commonly, our personal entry point to the drama triangle emerges from the dynamic of our family of origin. In other words, the family that we were born into most often determines our most natural and practiced position on the drama triangle. To understand how and why we get hooked onto this drama triangle and what to do about turning the drama into power, let's have a closer look at each of these roles in more depth. So the rescuer, people who enter the drama triangle from the point of the rescuer often feel that they must look after other people. They may have a childhood experience that forced them to care for their parents or their siblings at a young age. They may have been taught through words, actions, or by withholding love that unless they carry out their innate duty of care for others, they will be singled out, chastised, shamed, or even rejected. The persecutor. People entering the triangle at the persecutor role are the ones who feel like they have to take charge, assert themselves and their leadership to protect others, and to be the person who points out the obvious discrepancies of any given situation. Instead of being taken care of as a child with appropriate care and boundaries, the young persecutor understands that to create order and a sense of safety, someone, in other words, them, has to take charge. The young persecutor, out of feeling unsafe, learned to challenge whomever was in a perceived position of power. The victim. People entering the triangle at the victim role are most often feeling like they are at the preceding end or the receiving end of the world, and that they are powerless over their own reality. The victim's childhood circumstances of abuse and lack of care left them to surrender to the fact that they will always be at the mercy of others and the circumstances of life. Now, which ones of those roles do you identify most with, or can you identify those roles playing out in people around you in your life? Sarah is saying victim still, yeah, persecutor, ex-husband still, okay, yeah. Lisa says, I was a rescuer with my friends. Yeah, I hear you. I've been a rescuer. I'm a recovering rescuer. Sean says, definitely been the rescuer. Yeah, Beth says, rescuer. Amelia says, none, just kidding, rescuer. Yes, thanks, Amelia. Linda says, definitely rescuer. This is why I do the work I do. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Dominique, I'm not even sure, but I think rescue. Yeah. Again, we're just covering this real quick surface level, so more in the actual course. David says, I definitely try to be the rescuer so much. Part of my journey is to become less of a rescuer and just let go, but it's so difficult. It is difficult. It is so difficult. Yeah. Derek, victim and rescuer. Me. Laura says rescuer. Radu says rescuer. Identify with all of them, says Jacqueline. Yeah. Bonnie says, I'm caught up in this loop with my 19-year-old son. We both end up morphing through all these roles. I want off that warped carousel. I'm a rescuer right now. Yeah. Well, Bonnie, I believe you have the 4 people within. So you purchased the old 4 people within course, and whoever has purchased the old version will get the automatic upgrade from the 2nd of September onwards. So yeah, you'll be working on this, I reckon. So that's really exciting. Marie says, I'm definitely the rescuer. Mom's the rescuer and Dad's the persecutor. Okay. Yeah. Sean says recovering rescuer, love that. Yeah, well, I mean, we're always perpetually in recovery, right? And Tyson says, in order to avoid acknowledging what I often function as a victim, I consciously seek out being a rescuer to base myself in false sense of being competent and to get affirmation. Yeah, and of course there is a way out of this and into the empowerment dynamic, and that's what the whole 4 people within course is about. David says, Jocko Willing's materials made me less of a victim. Yeah, well, that'll do that. Yeah, so extreme ownership. Anybody who hasn't checked out Jocko Willing's work, I recommend that you do that so that you learn to embrace your inner assertiveness. And Bonnie says, yes, very excited to learn from you and your team. Yeah, I know there is a way out. There absolutely is. You're absolutely right. Okay, so I actually had a lot of information here on the inner children. We're going to talk about fear and shame. We're going to talk about, there's a surprise draw. Okay, we'll come back to that shortly. Sorry, I got a little bit surprised by that myself, even though I actually put that slide in there. But so we're going to talk about the concept of the inner child, but I just feel like it's going to take a lot of time, but also I don't want to overwhelm you. So Zahida thought there was a spider or something. Yeah. Choco Willink was the name, Linda. Thank you, Peter. And so, yeah, so let's do, we talked about the concept of the inner child, but maybe what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about the fear and shame, because that's a big part of our inner children's experience. So fear, shame, and anxiety is module 7 in the new 4 People Within course. The most common struggles our inner children face are overcoming shame, fear, and anxiety. Many would even add guilt to this list. Brené Brown, a leading shame researcher and inspirational speaker, says, based on my research and that of other shame researchers, I believe that there is a profound difference between shame and guilt. I believe that guilt is adaptive and can be helpful. It's holding something we've done or failed to do up against our values and feeling psychological discomfort. I define shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. That something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. Now, I know that there are people who feel that the shame and guilt are the other way around, and I don't want to argue either case. I'm just going to use this as a framework for what I'm about to say next. So, if as grown-ups right now, we look at our inner children's shame in this light, allowing ourselves to be shamed, whether by others or our internal dialogue, is a form of abuse. So if we have a very shaming internal dialogue, how we speak to ourselves, that's a form of self-abuse. Most people's inner children have some form of shame wound. As our ashamed inner children don't have the tools and the maturity to heal the wound, we as grown-ups must attend to it when we recognize it. The shame wound can surface as a form of stage fright, feelings of comparison towards others when we've made mistakes, or simply yearning to stay in the shadows due to a fear of stepping into the spotlight of our lives. Shame wound that is neglected becomes self-sabotaging, whether we are talking about our life's choices, how we relate to other people, or how we run our career. People with a dark and deep shame wound can end up in normally uncharacteristic situations, such as a physical or emotional violence towards expressing physiological or emotional violence towards other people, even people they love. This is not to condone violence, and certainly not to condone domestic violence, but to explain the origin of much of it. It's shame. In fact, shame seems much more likely to be a source of destructive, hurtful behavior than a solution or a cure for anything. This is why shaming ourselves doesn't work. By shaming ourselves, our confidence is crippled and we become unproductive. By shaming others, we contribute to their pain. So I'm just going to leave that one at that. So what are you taking away from that shame section from today? Marie says, shame, even inner shaming dialogue is abuse. Yep. Lisa says, by shaming others, we contribute, By shaming others, we contribute to others' pain. We absolutely do. Absolutely. Key takeaway from Derek, allowing ourselves to be shamed by our internal dialogue is a form of abuse. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's that moment of self-shaming when our inner grown-up should be stepping in, our adult self and our inner parent should be stepping in and saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. This is a decision that we are making as the grown-ups of our lives, because we can see that this shaming way will not bring us forward to where we want to go. Farita says, harmful for all, hard to shake off. It's hard to make these decisions that actually self-supportive decisions. It is hard, absolutely. Joe says the difference between shame and guilt, values versus action. Tyson says, shame has been the nuclear fuel in my inner reactor. I need to find new reactants. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way of saying it. Hashtag INFP writing. Linda says, working on domestic violence with women, it's very healing for them to clear the shame. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jacqueline says, I'm noticing how shaming others is used quite extensively in society to control others. Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, of course, there are times, like, again, this is not black and white situation. There are times when shaming somebody can help in some way. So let's just say that there's a person who is shaming, who is abusing a child. Shaming that person in that moment may act as a pattern interrupt for that abuse, so that you can get that child out of that abusive situation. So yes, there are extreme times when shame can work, but predominantly it doesn't, and it certainly doesn't help us get over, when we have relapses, as we talked about before. Marie says we have the choice to step in and stop our inner shaming dialogue. Yes, we do. Yeah. Bonnie says, made me cry when he said shaming myself is self-abuse. I never thought of it that way. Yeah. What's the opposite of fear and shame? Says Derek. What do you think, Derek? What do you guys think is the opposite of fear and shame? Faith and hope. Yeah. Self-love. Freedom. Yeah. Love. Love and acceptance. Yeah. Love, praise and support. Yeah. Power and compassion, for sure. Absolutely. All of those things. Freedom. Yeah. Love and connection. Yeah. Peace and confidence. Yeah. I would even say laughter in there, being able to laugh at yourself. That really tends to get rid of that shame piece. Courage and self-support. Yeah. Trust and connection too. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Making good decisions. Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old inner child. So let's go into surprise draw, which is not so much of a surprise. This is typical. I'm always like this. It's like I'm so bad at lying and deceit and pretending like nothing's happening. I always just fuck it up. I hope there's no children or people who get offended by bad language here. Yeah, what a surprise. Exactly. Welcome to this surprise draw. And do we have, Lisa, do you have your screen on? Can we see you?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay, nice one. So Lisa is going to draw. She has a sombrero.
Magic sombrero.
And
okay, from Mexico.
From Mexico. And actually, Lisa, you can win in the surprise draw. You can win 3 one-to-one mentoring sessions with Lisa, valued at $450 US. So that is such a cool prize. I'm super excited to see what happens. And so, Lisa, from your magic sombrero, can you please draw a name? So this is everybody who's been on this call, and we will find the winner.
Okay.
Bonnie is putting the pressure on you. She says, pick me, pick me. Who is the winner to one-to-one mentoring sessions with Lisa Payne?
You see that?
Yep, the winner is Radu. Yay!
Yep.
Congratulations, Radu. This is super exciting. I'm so happy for you. I've certainly done some mentoring with Lisa as well, and it is super exciting. I know you're gonna get a lot out of it. So yeah, super excited for you, Radu. Well done.
Sorry, everybody else. Sorry. It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Lisa, let's do an extra surprise draw. You don't actually even know about that. Do you still have the names there?
I do. I do.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So the next draw, this draw, let's do a free one-to-one session with me. Only one, because well, time limitations.
Yeah.
So the winner is.
The winner is. Drum roll, please. Whoops. Blank pages. The winner is. The winner is. Can you see that?
Marie. Excellent. Woo! Yeah. Congratulations, Marie. That's awesome. Okay. So the way that so Radu will get in touch with you for your one-to-one sessions with Lisa, and Marie will we're talking anyway, so we can sort that out. Okay. Thank you, everyone. What an exciting space for a little bit of a draw. And thanks, Lisa, for the draw. Thank you for executing, and thank you for contributing your valuable time as a prize for this session.
You're very welcome for everything.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the inner parent part of us. And then we will move into, we'll do a quick one on the adult self as well, and then we'll move into questions and answers, because truly, I would love to stay here with you all day, but I'm thinking we probably won't be able to do that. Okay, so our inner parent. Our inner parent's main jobs are to deal with self-sabotage, PTSD, chronic stress and anxiety, and self-love. And of course, all of these parts of us are there to round up our adult self and attend to the inner children, to the needs of them. So our inner parent is the loving, caring, supportive parent we may not have had growing up. This is a part of us that has the capacity to heal our past trauma and allow the full actualization of who we are as a person. Without acknowledging the inner parent, we fail to accept our own inner power, the power we have to heal and to achieve. When we connect with and harness our inner parent, we begin the journey into our powerful, actualized self. Our inner parent is the cheerleader, the guide, and the protector of our inner children. The inner parent acts as a bridge between the aspirations of our adult self and the hurts, hopes, and delusions of our inner children. When we think about our failure to meet goals, a goal or goals and aspirations we have set for ourselves, we either come to the conclusion that we can't reach the goal or the goal was unrealistic. Even worse, sometimes, when we don't achieve our goals, we begin to believe that there's something innately wrong with us, and that's why we didn't make it. Too many of us give up on our dream relationship, job, or other aspirations because we have not realized the importance of our inner parent in relation to our journey. The inner parent is the peacekeeper, tirelessly attending to the squabbles between the inner children and our adult self. The inner parent works as a translator of messages between the grown-up parts of us and the inner child parts of us. The inner parent is a listener. They are a caring parent who offers the inner children a platform to speak. The inner parent holds space for the inner children's pain, hopes, and dreams, and teaches them patience and basic strategic skills. In essence, the inner parent is the part of us that holds us together like glue. From the perspective of our inner children, our inner parent is the only person who will never abandon them. While we may have been injured by abandonment by one of or both of our parents or in our childhood, a healthy inner parent can give us, our inner children, the guarantee that they will never be left again. Realizing the presence of the inner parent, developing our inner parenting skills, and then communicating with our inner children effectively allows us to heal our abandonment wounds and move on to a life of success. Do you guys remember that saying, or have you heard that saying, be the person you didn't have when you were growing up? This is our inner parent. With the compassion and consistency of a healthy inner parent, we no longer stay in the struggle of our past traumas. So what is your big takeaway from the inner parent's role? Dominique says consistency will never abandon. Yeah. Jacqueline says that we already have what we need to live a happy life, the unconditional love from our inner parent. Absolutely. Absolutely. Be the person you didn't have growing up. This is powerful. I'm going to think about that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Beth. Linda says our inner parent is always doing the best it can. Yes. Yeah. Tyson says, hello self-sabotage, my old friend. Yeah. 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 The inner parent just plays such an integral part in the whole integration process because it brings our whole family together. I mean, having the power to deal with things like self-sabotage and PTSD and chronic stress and anxiety and issues around self-love and creating more self-love. The inner parent is like the superhero of our lives. Derek says, inner parent, the only person that our inner children will have the guarantee they will never be left again. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have to skip through a lot of this piece, but I'm going to talk about self-love, which is our module 18 in the new course. The concept of the self-love can be tricky because how we receive love is a unique process. Every person expresses and receives love differently, and the same is true for our self-love. Each of our four people within, our sensor, our intuitive, our thinker, and our feeler, expresses and receives love differently. Many write about and examine self-love, but without integrating self-love between the different parts of us, it is unlikely that we will ever reach the elusive state of profound self-love. Tools such as sorry, I was thinking about so many tools, but I picked the 5 love languages work by Gary Chapman and really accelerate our understanding of what's important to different parts of us. Much like getting to know which love language makes our loved one feel honored, we can build an inner grid of respect, care, and deep love between the 4 people within us. Working out the love languages of all the 4 people within results in feeling like we always have our own back and that we belong. With exploring self-love through the lens of the 4 people within, we can receive love from others without being attached to it as well. Relational problems such as jealousy, passive aggression, and attachment issues melt away when we become independent in our experience of love. Reaching independence with love allows us to then connect with others in a more healthy and reciprocal ways. Effectively, when each part of us reaches a state of self-love, we can finally build a deeply connected relationship we perhaps always dreamt of. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, giving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Words of affirmation are the kind, encouraging, supportive things that we need in order to feel supported. Those with love language of words of affirmation thrive in a positive, supportive environment. That's me. I have 2 main love languages. That's one of them. Quality time is all about sharing undivided attention with our loved ones. Those with quality time love language feel cared for when they get to do fun activities or simply spend undemanding time with those they love. Giving gifts is a symbol, is like a symbolic way of being thoughtful and showing through gestures that the recipient is important. They're cherished, they're cared for. Those with giving as a love language generally make efforts to surprise others and place great value on marking important occasions with appropriate presents. Acts of service, which is also one of my love languages, are thoughtful actions executed for the benefits of the recipient. Those with acts of service love language thrive in the space of practical support and teamwork. Acts of service lovers generally value a sense of belonging highly. Physical touch shows the recipient that they have closeness and a deep sense of belonging with others. So those with physical touch love language are the huggers of the family. They are the ones who can struggle the hardest with physical distance. When we recognize our adult selves, our inner parent, and our inner children's need to be loved, we can begin to love ourselves on a whole new level. Practicing loving ourselves this way highlights our needs to us, and it conditions us to treat ourselves with more care and respect. When we care and respect ourselves more, we automatically raise the standards on how others treat us. As a beautiful byproduct of our self-love, others too learn to love us more deeply. So, what's your main takeaway from the self-love piece? Sarah says, wow, how incredible, foundational. And I totally understand that each of our 4 people within have a different love language. Yeah. Lisa says, my 3-year-old's love language is physical touch. My 10-year-old is, in a 10-year-old is word of affirmation. Yeah. And it's so interesting when you really know, the important people in your life, when you know their love languages, it's just so much easier to honor them. You can proactively, like you can literally make a commitment to doing one specific thing in that person's love language for that person a day, and you create quite a lot of positive rapport in that relationship. Marie says that love language applies to our inner children as well, or inner family as well. I can't wait to ponder on that. Zaida says how we figure out our inner children's love languages. Sorry for a silly question. Predominantly just through meditation on it. Talk to them. So as you're creating a relationship with your inner children, talk to them. Ask, do you like this? Do you like that? Not a silly question at all. There are no silly questions. Jacqueline, understanding my inner children's love language is going to strengthen my inner parenting process for sure, 100%. Laura says, wow, integration of self-love amongst inner family. Yeah. Peter says, or quotes, as a beautiful product of our self-love, byproduct of our self-love, others learn to love us more deeply. Yeah. This is poetry and wonderful daily affirmation. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Amelia says that it's our job, most likely our inner parents, to make sure that we are feeling loved and getting those different love languages met. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's the job of our inner parents. Lisa says, my adult self and my inner parents' love language is quality time. Yep. Awesome. Okay. Then let's look at adult self. The adult self. The adult self has a lot of really important jobs. And those jobs are, knowing your personal values, building integrated relationships, having a healthy body, which is our vessel for life. Also, energy management, mind management and growth, stretching our creative power, purpose work, belonging, positive momentum for effective life, and our personal legacy. I'm going to pick one of those, but I'm just going to go into this section a little bit. So the adult self is the most fluent part of us. It is the part of us that sets the direction of our life as the people we are. It is the part of us we use most easily and the one that is most usually the most developed. This part of us is consistently the one that most people think about when they think about us. In other words, this is the part of us that guides most of our actions in the outside world. So if you don't know who your inner family is, get in touch with us, desk@mariasimilov.com, and we'll help you find out. And if you do know who your inner family is, who your adult self is, then you can start thinking about these things. Are they a thinker? If they are, then others usually think that you're intelligent. If they're a feeler, they usually see us as kind or emotionally available people. If they're a sensor, others usually recognize our preference for sensory experiences. And if they're an intuitive, then others recognize our preference for innovation and inquisition, so being an inquisitive mind. But the adult self has the most work. The adult self is the part of us that we use the most, and it has the most to shift through. So the adult self's job guides us in the most important areas of our lives. These areas include: 1, identifying, harnessing and expressing our natural values so that we can create a meaningful life experience and maximize our time. 2, investigating our past conditioning and turning it into fuel for our future growth. 3, relational aspirations, including deciding the most fitting way of relating to others, knowing how to pick up our battles, and having the skills to let go of what doesn't serve our integrated, compassionate, and effective self. 4, creating healthy and productive body connection with our physique, including transforming our redundant cellular memory and replacing it with new positive physio-emotional support structure. 5, creating a solid self and energy management system. 6, prioritizing the study of our natural fields of interest so that we can feel fulfilled with and thoroughly harness our capacity to apply critical thinking. 7, harnessing our imagination in intentional ways. 8, having a healthy expression of our inner creative power. 9, a purposeful life for sense of self-actualization. 10, a sense of belonging in the world, being accepted just as we are, and being encouraged to become more of who we are becoming. 11, building an effective life that allows us to power through our life with a sense of positive momentum and purpose. And 12, identifying and creating our personal legacy that continues well after we depart from this world. So in short, our adult self is the person we want to be as the grown-up person in our lives. They are the one who guides our life goals and aspirations, and the one that hopefully shows up predominantly in our relationships, finances, and vocational areas of our life. A strong grown-up decision-making process considers all aspects of the decision. 1, is this decision authentic to me? 2, is this decision the most harmonious decision to make? 3, do I have all the facts pertaining to this decision? And finally, 4, is this the most effective decision to make? So that's all I'm going to cover on this call today, but all those 12 pieces that we talked about earlier on that I listed, they're all included with exercises in the new 4 People Within work. So what's your main takeaway from the adult self piece so far? Aha, thank you. This makes more sense to me now. Yeah. Thanks, Aida. The adult self has so many jobs, so many jobs. And we don't want to overwhelm you with going through all of them. I'm amazed how powerful our adult self is. Very powerful. So you can kind of see, like, if you're stagnating in your life, how it's actually possible that you're showing up as your childlike parts of you predominantly, and you feel really powerless because they don't have that kind of experience in life or the strength to run the show, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we're showing up as our grown-ups, our adult self, and our inner parent, so that we can take charge of our own life and do the things that we want to do and be productive and be industrious. So yeah, oftentimes when we don't feel powerful in life, it's because we haven't fully harnessed the adult self. So thanks for that, Jacqueline. Joe says the potential of being grounded and coming from a place of strength in harnessing the adult self. Yeah. Lisa says, I have to protect my adult self's time to be able to function properly. Yeah, and especially for those of us who've experienced adversity in life, it can be easy for the inner children to kind of hijack our lives. So we want to make sure that that's not what's happening exactly, that we stand our ground and we say, inner children, I love you, but you're not running the show. Derek says, my adult self is responsible for experiencing belonging in the world. Yeah, and being accepted just as we are and being enough to become more of who we are in life. Yeah, and the whole thing about the belonging is that it's easier to feel a sense of belonging when you're on purpose. And also when you are able to express yourself in a way that's understandable for other people. Because oftentimes we isolate ourselves by saying, oh, people don't understand us, but it's actually, they don't understand us because we haven't taken the time to self-examine and then speak our truths in a loving, caring way. Bonnie says, I want to be adopted by me. Gotta go find that adult part of me. I hear it whisper, oh, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. And Sarita says, I used to have adult in me. Where did it go? Love it. Excellent. Okay. So there's so much here, and I want to say a big thank you to Peter for helping me with the purpose section of this adult self part of the For People Within course. It has been so helpful to have your genius to work with. And yeah, thank you so much for that. And also I want to say thanks to Mike Dooley, a friend of mine and a mentor who's helped me with the creative power segment of the adult self part of the For People Within work. His work is extraordinary as well. Okay, so we have more. No, that was it. Okay, so let's close today's session. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, but if we already knew what to do and how to do it, we would already be there, in inverted commas. So don't be afraid to ask for help from those who have acquired skills that you're still working on, because life is a continuous journey, and as long as we keep learning, we keep growing. And you will take the knowledge from today that feels most relevant to you and take action on it. Asking for help is the most powerful tool that we can possess. We're all in this together. So how can we help you? Because I hope you've gotten a lot of, I trust that you've gotten a lot of support already on this call, and you feel like you're being really looked after. And thank you for being a part of our 20 to 50 year plan. But what else can we do for you? So we can offer you the For People Within course, the new version of it, so the upgraded version, for the old price. So this special offer of Australian $159 will be there until 1st of September, at which point we're going to adjust the price to Australian $497. So we can help you with that. This is something we can do for you. $159. If you don't already have the 4 People Within course, you can head on over to mariasumilov.com and purchase it straight away. And if you do, you'll get some bonuses. So you'll get 6 Learning Circle group lessons, which is 9 hours of group study with me. I will be doing that with you. And you will also, once you're finished with your group study, you'll also get a 60-minute one-to-one call with a qualified mentor. As you can see, we're here to really make an impact. We're really here to make a change. And because our 20 to 50-year plan is around creating more compassionate and effective leadership in the world, we are committed to doing what we can. Now, if you want to join us on that price, on this journey, but you are worried about the price, just get in touch with us, desk@mariasumilov.com, before the 1st of September to get that old price, and we can create an extended payment plan for you. So as I said, the special offer is only until the 1st of September. This price will be adjusted to $497 on the 1st of September, which is our official launch date. So the old version of this course is still up on the website. So as long as you purchase your copy before the 1st, it's all good. So if you want to do that, you can head on over to mariasumilov.com/the-4 people within, within. And hopefully, if Lisa, if you don't mind just putting that, link in there in the chat box, and you'll have access to both the old course, then you'll get the automatic upgrade when it's out, and you'll have access to these bonuses that are worth $2,500. And again, offer ends September 1st. I hope that's clear now. Don't come to me after that date and say, I want the special offer. The offer ends on that day. So if you're in that space of ready to take action, you know, so on the stages of change, if you're in the actionary stage or you're in the commitment stage, then go ahead and do this. And if you're not, no problem, because for those of you who are not ready to take action, you'll still receive the boundaries module of the 4 People Within course. So this is another thing that we can do for you. Okay, so I want to go on to Q&A. Now, I know we're a little bit tight on time, so I'm just going to go and check the chat window right now. And Lisa is going to ask your questions on your behalf. So let me just make sure that I am not missing anything. Christmas coming early. best dollar spent. Yeah. Are you available for private coaching after I complete this course? Am I available? I am not, but I have amazing mentors who are available for one-to-one work. But do this because you have purchased the 4 People Within course, Bonnie. So you've already purchased that. So I'm going to extend this to people who have already purchased the 4 People Within course. So anybody who's already purchased will get the automatic upgrade and the benefit of the group sessions. I'm going to throw in the bonuses as well, and a one-to-one session with the mentor. So everyone purchased today or before the 1st of September, or anyone who has purchased, you're getting those bonuses. So I won't be available for one-to-one coaching after the fact, but I will have amazing people who can, and we'll find the right person for you to work with. Alicia says, can I get those bonuses if I purchased the course a few weeks ago? Yes, 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 absolutely. Yes, we will include you in it. Absolutely. And the first email of the new launch is coming out on the 2nd of September. David says, great value. Thanks, David. There's the link. Yes, boundaries in action, great teacher, September 1st. Yeah, look, that's the deadline. And, you know, a lot of people kind of like, especially those chronic helpers or those those of us who are recovering helpers, we like to kind of go like, oh no, you know, it's okay, you can pay me whatever. No, you know what? You're ready to take action. Buy the course before 1st of September or pay the higher price. Or if you're not ready to take action, no problem. You'll get the boundaries section of the course. So you'll be good. You can still do some work. All good. Everybody wins. Thanks, David. Great. Thanks from Alicia. Laura has to go. Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Q&A. So questions, Lisa.
Our first question is from Derek. Can I buy one for a friend and one for myself?
Okay. Good question, Derek. The short answer is yes. The long answer is make sure that your friend actually wants the course before you purchase it. Because if they're not ready to receive the work, if they're not ready to do the work, it can cause a lot of problems in your relationship with your friend. But if you know that they're ready to go, if you know they're good to go, then yes, absolutely you can. Yeah, and all you have to do then in that case is you go on to that link, put in your, because it asks for your email address and name. You can put your email address and name into there, and you can put your friend's email address and name into there, and you can use your own payment, card or whatever to pay. I hope that answers that. If not, get in touch with me and I'll walk you through it. Thanks,
Okay,
Lisa. What's next?
The next question is from Derek as well.
Okay.
How do you choose when to be vulnerable with others about present challenges with PTSD, abuse, trauma, and when not to? Okay,
great question. Thanks, Derek. Know your audience. So, trust is something that needs to be built slowly, especially when it comes to things that are really close to our hearts and really that can be very sensitive for us. So we need to make sure that we are in that space where we can trust the person. So if you don't know the person really well, but you have a sense that you can trust them, trust them with a small piece of information first and see how they react to it. So don't just blurt everything out and go, okay, this is the situation, how it is. Try little pieces of information, see how they react, if they're able to handle it, because sometimes people are going through struggles that we can't see, and then they might not have a great response to what we're giving them. So gently, slowly, one piece at a time. And if you get any sense that you can't trust the person, then don't continue down that road. We do have several Facebook groups that you can be a part of and bring your stuff there, especially to do with PTSD. That can be such a sensitive matter, and I know it personally, but there are people in our groups are safe groups. We moderate them well.
Okay. The next question is, what benefits do you get from being mentored whilst going through the 4 people within?
That's a great question. I think Erica wrote something on this. Let me just have a quick look. She said, going through the 4 people within while receiving mentoring has had a huge impact on my life. It helped me to get to know my inner children on a much deeper level and taught me how to inner parent them, which has been both empowering and healing for me. Over the last 2.5 years, I've built a trusting relationship with my inner children by making space for their feelings and needs and setting boundaries with them when needed. As a result, I've become more self-compassionate and more courageous, knowing that I will be able to take care of myself no matter what happens. I highly recommend this course. Okay, so yeah, so do you feel like that answers that question? It kind of deepens the experience profoundly.
Yes, yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
The next question, how does the 4 people within work for those with an inner child, with an inner critic?
Yeah, oh my goodness. The good old
be
inner
me.
critic.
Yes.
Okay. And I actually think those of you who don't, who know our friend Faida, our secret weapon, I think she actually said it really well. Let me just see if I can find what she said, because she's all over this inner critic piece. I had been exploring the world of personal development for many years before I came across MBTI. When I was typed as an INFJ, it blew my mind. So many things were befuddled me. Most of my life made sense in the framework as the theory. At the same time, I had discovered my type. I came across Mary Summerlove's inspiring healing story in her INFJ Unveiled and 4 People Within work. What drew me to the 4 People Within course was the vision of transforming the unhealthy aspects of myself into a healthier, more integrated whole. Just a sec. I just want to make sure that I'm not.
I think Faida had a good answer, but I think Elena had one which was more to the point.
Oh, okay. Because the inner critic piece is can be so stifling.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yes, Elena says about the replacing the inner critic. Yeah. So she says, for me personally, the work to replace my inner critic with a supportive inner parent was invaluable. I spent more than 20 years of self-abandoning and self-castigating. And I was able to break that habit within a month because of the perspective shift and skills I learned on this course. 3 years later, inner parenting is still a part of my daily life, and I remember happily self-judgment free. Nice. I highly recommend this course for anyone looking to create a better relationship with themselves and others. Yeah. So yeah, that self-criticism piece is so important to tackle into the ground and bury.
A question from, that's to me privately. Richard, did you want me to read that out publicly? Because I'm
Okay.
assuming.
Yes, she says yes.
Okay, great. So the question is, through inner parenting, as your different parts get more balanced, is it possible that your MBTI type might change?
Yeah, fantastic question. The short answer is yes, but also that the MBTI framework becomes almost inexistent. It doesn't matter anymore because you become so rounded that you will have just a slight preference, or introversion over extroversion, or vice versa, or sensing versus intuition, or vice versa, thinking, feeling, vice versa, judging, perceiving, vice versa. So yeah, the more we do this work, the more we can actually test as different types. So yeah, it's almost like if we look at personal development in that way, and we look at the MBTI is almost like a way of describing our coping mechanisms that we learned early in life. And then when we let go of those coping mechanisms, we no longer are our type, if that makes sense. So everybody just has different coping mechanisms. So I hope that makes sense.
So Derek's question is, what's the number one takeaway you want all of us to walk away with as a result of what you shared today?
Oh my goodness. That we're building something bigger. We have power to change ourselves and to change the surroundings that we exist in, for the better, for more support, for more compassion, for more effectiveness. And yeah, that's the big, we are so much more powerful than perhaps we remembered. That would be, because life has a way of sometimes, especially when you're going through hard times, life has a way of trying to kind of shut us down. And we have to remember that we have the power to keep opening that portal.
And Derek also says, how do I determine my 3-year-old's love language as an INFJ?
couple of ways. So take the list of the five love languages, which you get with the course, and you can find them online as well. And then ask that little child, hey, do you feel like this? Do you feel like that? So start that conversation.
Yep, agree. Linda says, are there actual exercises or techniques to help people love all parts of themselves? I would love more tools. You help
domestic violence women.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So so there's 240 exercises in that course that will actually all start to move everybody into that direction, simply because you know, every one of those exercises is potentially life-changing, and they get to introspect. They get people to get into introspection and really get to know themselves. And the more, of course, the more that we know ourselves, the more we are able to love ourselves. So yes, but it takes time, of course. And you know this, Linda, as well. You know that it takes time to get to that space. So yes, there are. And there's a lot of exercises. I really recommend to get the whole course, not to make a sale, but because to go through each one of those exercises. They're all related to the material that's in the course. So it's just so much. There's so much in it. We're talking about 108,000 words. So yeah. If you want to talk about more specific ones, Linda, get in touch with me. But the fastest way to get into that is to get onto the course. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Richa asks, how does a quiet introverted adult self show up in the world?
They actually show up in a very kind of subjective way. That introverted adult self is a very heavy presence, and by heavy I don't mean negative. I mean solid presence, and that's the strength of an introverted adult self.
Okay, let me just look. Hang on. Okay, does anybody else have any live questions? We have, because if
some
not,
submitted questions, don't you?
Yeah.
But I don't want to keep going forever. I mean, I love being here.
I was going to say maybe another couple of questions.
Let's do one more.
Okay. Derek, another live question, says, what's the best way to promote your new course? How can we be of service to you?
Well, thank you, Derek. And that just hits me straight in my heart, because acts of service, as you know, is my love language. So thank you for that question. I think the best way, because you've gone through this course, you've done this work, Derek, the best way to do it is to do your own work and to talk about what benefits you have received from it. So just in case there's a person who needs to hear that there's a way out of some situation that might feel uncomfortable. Derek, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about what you've experienced? Would that be an option for you? So I'll make you a co-host so that you can put your video on and share, mute and unmute yourself.
How are you doing, everyone? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for putting me on the hot seat. I appreciate it. I think I do. The work that you do has accelerated my growth like nothing else. I've done 12 steps recovery. I've been in counseling work. But you basically give a roadmap for what introspection is. Before finding your work, I felt like I was shooting in the dark. But doing your work, it was like me having someone take me by the hand saying, go left, not right, go right, not left. And it helps me understand myself at a level that I'm 35 years old. I've never felt so, I guess, confident, at peace within myself, and sure about my future. It was often, always just strife with anxiety, strife with shame, and second guessing myself. Those things still happen, but I'm aware of the gap that used to be and the gap being much smaller. And there are certain areas where the gap has become non-existent. And I'm excited for the other areas where it becomes non-existent, and I get to focus on just constantly being in that place. You said a well-developed introvert adult has a heaviness to him. I'm aware of that happening in my own life, and that's what your course work has done for me. And I'm excited for the prospect of sharing that transformation, not only with people in my family and my friends, but with the world. So that's kind of what I've gotten from doing your work and the I guess applying this in my own life. So thank you.
Yeah, oh, well, thank you. And to answer your question, the best way to talk about this work is when you recognize that somebody is having a challenge that you've overcome, that you can see that, hey, you know what, I did this work and I overcame that. When you see that, ask that person if it's okay for you to share a resource with them that might possibly help them. And that's the best way of sharing this work.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for being willing to get onto the hot seat.
It's my pleasure. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Derek. And yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that for today. I just want to say a big, massive thank you to everyone who participated today. Congratulations to Radu and Marie for your wins. Super excited for you. Congratulations also to all of you who have already purchased the 4 People Within course, or have purchased it today, or are going to purchase it in the next 2 days before 1st of September, because you will all get those bonuses that we talked about, the 6 sessions, which is 9 hours of group work with me, as well as a one-to-one mentoring session with one of our qualified mentors. So I'm super excited for you all. But more than anything, because I know the power of this work, but more than anything, I just feel really humbled that you spent this time with me today, with us, with Lisa and I. Thank you, Lisa, for hosting today. Words. I'm a little bit speechless now. Lisa, do you want to take us out before I start crying?
Words. That's so funny. I just want to thank everybody for coming along today and for being so engaged with the work that we're doing, and answering the questions and getting involved in the personal development side, because it's the engagement of all of you that make it worthwhile for Maria to do what she does, and for me to be able to support her, to help her do the things that she does. And so what I really want to say is, if we've offered some value to you today, please buy the course if you're ready to take action. And as Maria says, you'll get the boundary section no matter what. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming along and giving us your time, because we know that your time is precious and you can choose to spend it elsewhere. And I'd like to thank Maria for being, okay? Words, right back at you, words.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, everyone. If you feel like, if you can think of somebody who might really benefit from this course, feel free to share the link that Lisa shared, or get in touch with us, or go on to mariasumiloff.com and send the link for the 4 People Within course and share it with your people. But of course, I don't want any forcefulness around this. I don't want any sales kind of people being sold into. It's not what we do. We're here. We are not worried about today's or tomorrow's profits. We are worried about the impact. We're focusing on the impact we're making in the next 20 to 50 years. So thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you for your passion for yourselves. You doing your own work makes all of our lives so much better. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Take care.